They said growing up, I was never told to care for myself. I was told to give, and give.
And
They
care
were
for
upset.
others. Yes.
Yeah, and the problem that we forget is that, we get caught in so many things that we neglect to care for this, to embrace this body. Because if this body is not well, we cannot do anything else. If our mind is so cluttered, so busy, our mind cannot be clear to help anyone or to do anything else properly. That's the goal. That's why I have the four centric circles. You need to start with yourself, and then family, and then the friends, and then including your enemies. Or I don't like to use the term enemies. I use the term that difficult people. But everything has to begin with the self, with you personally.
It was a great pleasure to sit in the company and the energy of Buddhist monk Di Hong, who is co-founder of the Engaged Buddhist Alliance since 2013, has volunteered in several California state prisons, including trauma-informed Buddhist psychology and mindfulness meditation. Di has taught Buddhist psychology, graduate and undergraduate, and integrative psychology at Living and Dying at the University of West since 2016. He holds a master's and a PhD in Buddhist Studies from UWest in 2010 and 2015 respectively. The topic of dissertation is Development of Buddhist Repentance in Early Medieval China. Di has been ordained as a bhikkhu in the Chan tradition since 2006 and the Theravada Tradition under Khippa Panno since 2014.
Thanks so much for being here, Di. It's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. So I have a huge curiosity and have had a huge curiosity about Buddhist monks, and I'm just wondering what inspired you to become a Buddha?
Well, I grew up in Vietnam, and basically I grew up in a Buddhist culture.
Okay.
Because Vietnam is predominantly Buddhist, 80-something% of people, are still Buddhist even today. What brought me to becoming a monk was that at the time I was stressed out. I was in software.
Okay, yes.
I was in software, but what I had to do was tech support, where I had to do a tech phone calls. And that was literally, that was the worst job that I ever had, even though the pay was well.
Yes.
And I get yelled at all the time by the customers on the other line. And I try, but I always get home very angry, even in the middle of the day after a couple of phone calls. I tried different things. I exercise, and I just didn't know how to meditate. and also looking around, I saw a lot of suffering, and one thing led into another. I ran into a Buddhist nun, and she said, "Why don't you become a monk?" I'm like, no,
Yes.
But that question was always in the back of my mind. And eventually, one thing led to another. I decided to quit my job, as well as ended my career with corporate America, and became a monk since April of 2006.
Did you have to take some training to be a monk? I mean, there's such a curiosity that people have about monks, and so I'm just wondering.
Oh yeah, definitely. I have to find a teacher. At the time, I found a teacher who helped me to literally. He is my root teacher.
Okay.
He shaved my head, and then I went to, because you have to be ordained properly by 10 months. You cannot just say, "Hey, I shaved my head," and no. Nobody can accept you. Nobody can recognize you. So I end up moving to Vietnam for the training and also for ordination. And the training, it could take from a few years, but because I was in Vietnam for almost 2 years, in living in the monasteries, learning all the rituals, the chanting. And because I got so sick that I moved back to the US and LA and in December of 2007.
Okay.
Yeah, and that was my official training. But once I got back to the US, I attended a grad school for my MA and PhD in Buddhist Studies in Chinese Buddhism.
Okay. So that takes a few years, doesn't it?
Yeah, it usually takes 5 years.
And so with the teachings that you learn, then you go out yourself and teach?
Correct. Let's say if I were to be fully training in the monastery for 5 years at least, then I would be able to give Buddhist teaching or Dharma talks to people who have a need, but for me, because I live in the US and I went to a university, so my academic training was in the university setting. It's more of a secular setting, but we study and analyze the Buddha's text as objectively as we can.
So when you say chanting, is it that you are learning to chant certain words or phrases in order to, is it to help your body and soul resonate with that chanting, the sound, the vibration of that? Is it that type of thing?
It's a bit of that. And chanting in short, and even according to Tina Turner, chanting is a form of meditation.
Yeah.
So going back to my chanting in Vietnam, because we basically we took out a sutra or teaching by the Buddha.
Yes.
We read it out, we recite it out loud in Vietnamese. So we did it 3 times a day, and that was a way, first of all, like you said, and part of the chanting, we had what we call the mantra or the dharani, and you said the sound. It can help us to be in tune with our mind as well as our body. So that's what chanting mostly is about. But a lot of the misperception that people have is that chanting can get rid of your problems, like getting of all your issues. A lot of folks did the chanting when we had the COVID. Well, we still have the COVID. It didn't go away, but it can help settle our mind and ease our fear and anxiety, just so that we know what to do and how to deal with the issues around us.
And so the chanting done at a regular time, like you said, like 3 times a day, but day in, day out, it actually affects your subtle body, where you become, because when I think of Buddha, I think of a wise, calm, knowledgeable, spiritual healer, really.
Yes.
And is this all because of the training that you go through, the chanting, and it actually changes your body in a way and your brain?
Correct. It helped because when we are chanting, we focus on the words or the sound.
Yes.
Our brain, our mind does not have time to think, and our brain does not need to process anything. And so it can help us to really settle down.
Yeah. So then what happens, I think, is it your vibration then becomes calm, and so people respond to that? Because a lot of people, they are kind of outside of their body, and if we all had a calm demeanor, it'd be a happier world for sure. But it would help somebody if they were anxious or have that type of feelings. This chanting would actually help them. Even hearing it, they wouldn't even have to chant. They would just have to hear the chanting, right?
Correct. Yeah. When we do the chanting, or even when we meditate, most of us who do, and we are able to be more mindful, and we don't react that quickly or harshly, so that when people see us, they are able, they catch it, because emotions are infectious, right?
Yes.
And when we smile, people they can tell. Or when we get angry, like people stay away.
Yeah.
So with the practice,
they repel. Yeah.
Correct. with the practice of meditation or chanting, people are able to feel that calmness from us, and they're able to draw to us. That's why when I go to prison, even though I'm not as calm, but because people inside the prison, they live in a chaotic and violent environment, and when then that's all they knew, and they're surrounded by the same people. But when I walked into the prison ground, when I got inside the chapel, they kept telling me that how could I be so calm? I'm like, no, I'm not calm. That I'm the force of calmness and peace. I'm like, no, but because I'm coming from outside and I'm being mindful because, hey, this is the prison environment. So, and people drawn to me or come to learn and meditate with me. And that's what happened.
And so the practice of meditation, people will say, well, I don't have time to meditate. But is it true that even 5 minutes of meditation helps to change your brain? Really, it begins to settle down those synapses that are firing all the time?
Correct. Even for 2 minutes, right, or 1 minute, because what happened is that when we get caught up in our mind, in our brain keeps getting stuck in one thought after another, right, and we forget. Guess what? We forget to breathe. That's what happens.
Oh yes. Oh, there's
And
no
then
breathing at all.
when we forget to breathe, then guess what? Carbon dioxide stays in our body, and then we can't breathe. So that's it. Go to Dr. Paul Friday's website. He has that talk. He has 8 points about how for people to deal with how to come back to the present moment, how to learn about life. And he said, come back to that's what he said. So when we come back to the breath, take some deep breaths. Seriously, we actually reset our mind and reset our brain and ease our anxiety. Yeah, and like to do that even with purpose, with intention, right? Just pay attention to the breath. In, you count 4. Out, you count 4. Do that for 2 minutes. And we actually can reset everything and shift our perspective. That's the key.
Because people then, when they have a heightened sense, they shallow breathe instead of breathing from the belly.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Even I have the same problem when I'm driving long distance. If there's traffic jam, if people are tailgating me, I get anxious. So I have to come back to the breath and take some deep breaths and to relax my body as well.
Very interesting, really great practices. And so you also mentioned mindfulness, and there'll be some people, some listeners that may not know, what does being mindful mean?
Okay, a brief definition is the art of paying attention to an object or to something without reacting, without judging or making comment. That's what mindfulness is. Let's say we can use an example of, let's say you are standing on the sidewalk on the street and you see cars going by in both directions. For a car lover, he or she would say, oh, I see this and that. That's right there. However, you're able to acknowledge one car at a time. Let it go. One car at a time, let it go. And that's what mindfulness is in a way. And the same thing when we, let's say, when we are talking to people and we can listen mindfully without the chattering mind saying, oh, that person is crazy, right? So that means that we're not mindful. It's just that, okay, let's observe it. There's a bit of observation in the act of mindfulness. And people without major health issue, especially psychosis or something, all of us, we're able to do it. We just have to have an open mind and be patient and like, hey, let me sit for 1 minute or 2.
Because we live in such a fast-paced world.
Yes.
And 1 minute or 2 minutes can seem like a long time unless your brain is racing to the next thing to think about, right? And then time just disappears on us. We go,
Correct.
what? And there was no benefit to the
Correct.
thoughts that are tumbling in and out of your brain.
Yeah, because like you said, we live in a fast pace because we want everything done right now. And the problem is that when we are consumed for lost in something, then we are not aware that what we need to do or what is next. So we lose that patience because our time is scheduled pretty tightly. And the issue is, we are not prepared for anything that stops us in the middle of something. So we can easily become agitated or even angry or having an outburst. Yeah. So we don't, I guess, we are so caught up in so many things that we don't set up the time to really take care of our physical and mental health.
And the thing is that some people don't realize that they need to take care of their own physical health or their physical, they don't realize that they have to do that.
Correct.
So when there's another practice that I love of the Buddhist practice or the mindfulness is loving kindness. And I just find that when we come from a place of loving kindness, people feel that energy even before you begin to speak. Can you talk to the listeners about practicing loving kindness and maybe give a couple examples for them?
Sure. Loving kindness what it means is that according to from the Buddha and also Sharon Source, what she wrote about it, is our ability to fully embrace and accept who we are, or the whole body, the whole physical body, and that we know how to care for our body. And in order to do that, we need to have the mental ability to recognize that. The issue is because in America, when we look at the ads or look at the movie star, they have these perfect bodies, right? And then we're like, oh, I want that. But the thing is, we don't pay attention to ourselves. So loving kindness is like to let go of the judgment or the self-hatred, self-hating, self-criticism. We also need to let go of that. And it takes practice. And for example, what I do inside the prison is that when we are meditating, after some 20 minutes or 30 minutes of sitting, allowing the mind to settle, and focus on the breath and also the body scan, then I transition to the practice of loving kindness by having the folks inside the prison to repeat some of the following phrases. May I be healthy. May I know how to care for my physical health. May I be happy. May I know how to find joy and happiness from within. May I let go of any anger, ill will, resentment, and hatred. And may I be kind and loving to myself. These are the phrases of loving kindness practices that can train our mind, because we have to go to the mind to reset and transition that attitude to caring about ourselves, because we neglect this body. We are so busy with the external world. We forgot to take up this body and the internal world that we have.
Oh, that is just beautiful teachings, because when I asked the question, I thought that you were going to go to the outside of how we can be loving and kind to others. And I'm just blown away by what you have just taught, because it had not occurred to me to turn that practice into myself so that my body feels love. And when our bodies feel love, then disease and illness has a hard time of harboring there.
Correct. We think that, we can be kind, like we can give the homeless some money, this and that, but we forgot that, hey, this body needs care. And this is what self-care is, right? And the thing is, if you don't have money in the bank, how can you give money to people? I don't know if this is a good analogy.
It is a good analogy.
And here's what a lot of the women inside the prison told me. They said growing up, because I worked with some of them then in their 70s and 80s, they said growing up, I was never told to care for myself. I was told to give, and give.
And care for others. Yes.
Yeah. And the problem that we forgot is that, we got caught in so many things that we neglect to care for this, to embrace this body. Because if this body is not well, we cannot do anything else. If our mind is so cluttered, so busy, we cannot have our mind cannot be clear to help anyone or to do anything else properly. That's the goal. That's why I have the four centric circles. You need to start with yourself, and then the friend, and then family, and then the friends, and then including your enemies. Or I don't like to use the term enemies. I use the term that difficult people. But everything has to begin with the self, with you personally.
That's incredible. So you also talk about gratitude. So what is the benefits of gratitude to ourselves and to others?
Okay. I looked at a lot of the gratitude phrases in the West, in the clinical psychology settings. They usually name 3 things that you are grateful for, right? I have a place to live, I have family, I have friends. Yes, those are good. However, the Buddha said, and this goes back to the Buddha back 2,600 years ago. Gratitude, there are 2 things. He said there are 2 things there are 2 people that are hard to find. One is doing the kindness, and one is being grateful for the kindness done. Okay. Now, and then he went on to say, okay, let's say your parents, they didn't have to give birth to you. They gave birth to you. They didn't have to raise you. They raise you. In America, at least 18 years, or they pay for your college graduation or everything. They didn't have to do all of that, but they did. And what did they get in return? So by granted, some of our population were neglect or were abused. Yeah, we hope that's why we hold on to resentment and hatred against our parents. But putting that aside, without our parents, we don't have this body and mind. So by starting with practicing gratitude, is that it helps us to be humble, to feel, is more than appreciation. Is that we are grateful for our parents. We are grateful for our teachers, some of them who went out of their way to make sure that we learn. They could be very strict, they could be, tough, but you call that tough, but we learn. So when we are able to express that during the meditation, then when we become kinder, we are grateful for what we have, but we can also extend that gratitude and offer that to people around us without expectation. Like, okay, if we do something like, okay, what's in it for me? And especially in America, if people are doing something like, what's in it for me? We have that's in the Western, if I may say. I apologize if it's not correct. We tend to say, what's in it for me? Put that away. If we help somebody, that's it. Don't even think about it. And that helps us to be able to do more and to live our life properly without causing harm to anyone. Because we did the kindness. We wouldn't want to inflict harm on anyone, even animals. And that is the gratitude practice from the Buddhist perspective.
Just beautiful. I'd like to shift gears just a little bit.
Sure.
And ask you about something that I'm curious about, and I would just love to ask a Buddha about this, is do you believe, or, I know there's not really scientific evidence. There's starting to become some evidence about skills like telepathy, that we know things ahead of time. And they've actually done scientific studies. And I'm going to be having Dr. Dean Radin on the show that's going to talk about these studies. And then if we have telepathy, if we know things, it's also called intuition. Where does that knowingness come from? Where is it sitting?
Okay, I don't have that ability. And I can't even speak for the Buddha, but here's from my experience, with my own personal meditation and my interaction with people who meditate as well. It comes from the intuition, the awareness. It comes from the mind through years of practice. And like I said earlier, with emotion, when someone who is upset or who is happy, you're able to tell. So this is where when we interact with people, you can tell, especially if you have that awareness and that comes from meditation or other religious practices, you can have that. Even and the Buddha. If you let me pause and then go back to the Buddha. I looked at some of his teachings in the morning. Usually he would sit and he probably did what we call survey of where he would want to go because he had that supernatural power, right? And on his and that one day he may choose a path that he would run into somebody in which he would give a talk and help that person, because he somehow knew ahead of time that person needed help. And you see so many quite a lot of instances of his interactions with people, monks or nuns. Coming back to our society, when I deal with people, when I interact with people, a lot of times I could tell that this person is stressed out through, even if they don't show, but it's through the way they talk or through their conduct, their hand gesture or the way they walk, that I could tell. So it's from the meditation practice that, and also from we are letting go of judging and reacting, and also from a place of practicing loving kindness and compassion. When we look at somebody who is suffering, we naturally turn to that person and help that person without expectation or asking for anything. There was one person, just one, and then I'll stop. Back during December of 2020, during the pandemic, I was very sick in my bed for like 10 days. I lost 10 pounds. And then in January, I received a letter from a guy inside the prison I used to work with in Lancaster, but then he transferred to Northern California. I got a letter from him and he said, "Hey D, are you okay? What's happening to you?" Because he said, whenever I meditate, your image came up. So I wrote to him. I said, "Well, I was sick in bed for 2 weeks, but I didn't feel the need to tell anyone," especially, folks inside the prison. That's the last thing I want them to worry about, right? And then he said, "Oh, no wonder, because when I meditate, your image kept coming up." So sometimes we have this, what we call sometimes our minds, can communicate at the different frequencies. I don't know if that makes sense.
I wanted to know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a different vibrational frequency. And if you live in that vibrational frequency or visit it, you're able to tap into and get this knowledge. I mean, I've also heard mothers know if their child is injured or in trouble, and the child may even live in a different country or a different city. And these are the types of feelings that people have. They haven't been tested, but there's storytelling down through the years. This is what we learn.
Yeah. This is awareness. This is what we call intuition. Even actually last Saturday, I was inside a level 3 security prison. There was a guy, he didn't say, I knew him for a while, he didn't say much, but he looks completely stressed out. I didn't have time to talk to him because I had 16 guys, in 2 hours. So when I was leaving, I said, "Hey, are you okay?" He was like, "Yeah, it's a lot better," because he said that he was housed with a cellie with someone else who was violent and not unstable. And now he said now it's better that he was able to move to a different cell, but the stress from him is still shown on his face, even though he didn't say much, but I don't know, from my experience, when I look at that, like I said, "Hey, are you okay?" Usually that's from what I have done in my experience. Yeah.
Yes. And so, we recognize things like that. And what I have found in my life, I have found that people who appear to be unapproachable, that you wouldn't want to approach them, is because they seem to have a barrier around them or a protected field around them, and you think they're angry or that they are not happy. But when you get to know those people, it's something that's happened to them, and they're carrying that grief or they're carrying those feelings with them. And as soon as you start to talk with them, they're so happy that you've asked them, because they start to relax that, okay, so now it's okay that they've told you that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you speak on that?
Oh, yeah. I have a lot of those.
You have a lot of those. Great.
Folks inside the prison, it's the same thing with people out here, right? Because we're so busy, a lot of folks, they had no one to talk to. And then, that's why we have this issue because of social media. So people feel disconnected, people feel lonely and distant, all of that. The same, and it's much worse inside the prison. And the first thing was that, most of these folks, they suffer trauma when they were kids, right? So that's the first layer, I call it. And also when they were arrested and going through trial, that's another layer of trauma. And then once they get into prison, the way that they're treated and also with folks around them, that's 3 layers. So and we all, as humans or even animals, we all want to live, we all want to survive. So inside the prison, in order for them to survive, they have to put up the wall. They have to look tough. They have to be angry. They have to pose this macho men, right? Even for women. So I ran into a few, some of these guys, they look very angry. Right.
Unapproachable.
Yeah, but once I get, here's one thing that I do. Once I get inside the prison, I'm joking a lot. I make them feel comfortable. I don't have any fear at all. And I'm able to tap into the inner side of themselves by first, without judging them, that, hey, are you okay? And without judging, and they were able to open up and to say, hey, I'm still angry for all this shit, this and that. And I consistently, and these folks, I only met them once a month, because they are 200 miles away from my house. And after 5 or 6 months, they put down the wall, and they actually came to me, hey, I want a hug. And these guys are like 200, 250 pounds, 6 feet tall, and I'm only 5'7". And the same thing with the women. Actually, most of them, don't talk, but they in a group setting because they feel safe to actually open up and talk about the issues, and that helped them to put their wall or guard down to be who they are. And that's the things that with mindfulness practice, with loving kindness and compassion, it can help people to deal with all of this, to process, to become who they are, or to become the version of who they want it to be.
Mm-hmm. And so with some of the prisoners, did they just not have a good home life? Or did they grow up sort of fighting on the street sort of thing? Like, is that the type of thing that was going on?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Let's say, there are a lot of stats from CDC. For most of us out here, like 60% of us would experience one traumatic experience, be it like abuse, physically or sexually or verbally, or neglect, or witnessing domestic violence, or parents, on drug. 60% of people out here. People inside the prison, 90% of them experience at least 4 traumatic experiences. Not only that, they were physically abused, they were verbally abused. They watched their parents fight, especially the mother being beaten pretty bad, and they were never shown love to them. So that's like easily 4. And once you have 4, this is like a score of 4 out of 10, chances are you're going to get into trouble. Chances are you're going to use substance, alcohol, or drug, to deal with all this uncomfortable feeling and emotions inside the body. And some are lucky to not committing crimes, but a lot of them end up committing crimes because they affiliate with gangs, or they took their vengeance, their anger out on somebody, and then they get caught. And that's what happened to literally 90 to 95% of folks inside the prison. And that is something that I like the public to know, the American public, even the Canadian public, to be aware of this issue. Nobody like you and I or anyone would just wake up and decide in the morning to commit crimes. Nobody. Mm-hmm. But because of these accumulated traumatic experiences that we did not have a chance to process or know how to deal with it, and then what we kept adding on, and that's what happened. And I bet you people who have road rage, or people who fly in the airplane that they acted up, all of them have some kind of issues that they have not processed or addressed them. And boom, they just blew up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the road rage is a very scary thing, because now they have a vehicle that they can use essentially as a weapon.
Or they have guns with them, right?
Or they have guns with them.
Yeah.
Right. Is it because they want to pass someone, they can't pass someone, and they need to so much control over their environment that this is what gets them into trouble? Like, what is the reason for them to react in that way?
Well, because they have built up so much anger over the years, right? Yeah, they have built up from childhood, from school, and then let's say they get married, they have an unhappy marriage. They went to work, they weren't happy at work, so all of this built up. So it was only a matter of time that they will blow up if they didn't realize that. Even if you give them a look, they could come after you.
Because they interpret it a different way than somebody who grew up with less of those incidences in their life.
Correct. That's
their interpretation of what's going on.
Yeah, and this comes down to a matter of perception, right? Again, this is also from one of the Buddha's teaching too. It's like whatever that we perceive, we take that as real, and then we run after it.
Okay.
Yeah, perception, feeling, all of these are part of the Buddha's teaching in the 5 aggregates. And for anyone, with a lot of the traumatic experiences, they will react harshly or violently.
And you said the 5, and I missed what you said there. What are those? The 5?
The 5 aggregates or 5 skandhas is referring to a human being, us.
Okay.
It begins with form, which is the body. And feeling, perception, volition, or mental formation, and consciousness. Yeah. So let's say we have this body, right, and consciousness, right, and because of our senses, we come into contact with the external object, then it gives rise to feeling, or it gives rise to perception. And then depending on the experience, we just react to it. And that's called volition. And the thing that we need to be aware is that feeling and perception, they don't carry karma if we don't react to it. Let's say if someone, gave me a look or something, I said, or curse at me, I said, it doesn't feel pleasant, right? But if I don't react to it, I don't create negative karma. It's that person that is creating negative karma for him or herself. But I don't. But if I react to it, then we would collide and we will get into trouble, or we get into a fight. So feeling and perception don't carry karma. It's the volition, it's our reaction, as a result of our feeling and perception.
I love it. And so I'm glad that you brought up karma, because people are mystified by that word, or they misinterpret the meaning of what karma is. Can you just go a little bit more in depth with karma?
Okay, so karma means action. Actually, karma is a Sanskrit word. It spells K-A-R-M-A, and then there's another word, kamma, K-A-M-M-A. That's a Pali word. Right. The two words means, action. I don't know why, it means action. But the result of our action is what we have to suffer, or that we have to face. That's why the Buddha said, we have to face or bear the consequences of our karma. But the problem is that the result, of what we think, say, and do, they don't have physical form. So we think that we could get away with it. Right? So let's say you have someone offer you something and you put so much salt in it and you finish it. But then, so your karma, or the result of your karma, is that you become thirsty, right? Or when someone who is angry all the time, this and that, and when they blow up right there, they weren't able to address all the issue, and they blew up, and they are not even aware of it. Right? Yeah. So right there, they end up either killing somebody or causing harm to somebody, and as well as harm to themselves. So karma could be instant. It could take some time for that to mature. And also, according to the Buddha, it could also take a lifetime to mature, because we believe in the idea of rebirth. So that now let me switch over to the practice of loving kindness can eliminate much of your negative karma in this lifetime. And that is according to the Buddha. Yeah.
Excellent. That's an excellent thing for people to know.
Yeah. And compassion, because when we are constantly being kind to ourselves and others, we are constantly creating positive karma.
So when we are angry, when we lash out at people, that actually is harming our own body.
Correct. Yeah.
Which is your karma.
Correct. And here's the thing, right? That's why the practice of mindfulness is not just the mindfulness meditation. There's another there's another foundation that the Buddha taught, mindfulness of feeling. So when you pay attention to your feeling, let's say when you feel angry, you're able to recognize the signs, right? The physiological signs. But it comes from your consciousness first. When someone call you by a racist name or something, you hear it, right? And then you feel angry and you think that you are justified to be angry, but pay attention to the body. Your heart beat faster. When your heart beat faster, your blood flow faster. That means that your body temperature rises. That means that your body your body becomes hot, you sweat, your face turn red. All of these are the signs, and your breath is also shallow, probably, you're heavy. Yeah. All of these are the physiological signs of anger. But when we practice mindfulness of feeling, we're able to recognize that.
Do you feel that people become addicted to that, though? Like that they have to have that hit? And they'll sort of antagonize an argument or whatever in order for them to feel.
Correct. I mean, we can feel angry. We're justified, but we need to be mindful of that and not react to it. And there were a couple weeks ago, I read something about people feeling angry and because it makes them feel powerful.
Yes.
And that's a problem that's a problem in modern society, especially when it comes to politics, right? Yes. Yeah, you see, if you're angry, like people go with
power.
you. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But the thing is, this body suffers the blood flow, the hypertension, right? And then your body is restless, and then if you don't sleep well, and then if you don't eat properly, your body is going to suffer. It won't take long. And the thing is that the article said if you let that go, people are at a loss. If you let go of the anger, it's like, what happened? The thing is, if you're able to let go of all of that, you have this calmness, this peace from within. But I guess in America, people don't realize that. They feel, don't get mad, get angry, or get even. You know what? Yeah. That's the mentality in America. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I wouldn't. I let that go. I could still be irritated or frustrated, but I don't get to the point where it get me angry, because when I get angry, I can't breathe. It would take me 2 months or so, for my body to settle down, so I don't.
Yeah. And that's what it is when you get into that elevated state of anger and all the physiology that goes with it. That can actually be, I think, an addiction. And so some people look for it. And so they go onto the highway with it. They go into conversations with it. And, the political arena, as you say, like people appear powerful. If they're really, strong on a subject or whatever.
Yeah. No, the thing is, people don't realize that if the anger, and also because it also stems from their younger years, right? People suffer these traumatic experiences. If they don't address that, chances are they end up dying early death in their 40s and 50s. I have seen so many from inside the prison as well as people out here. Period. Yeah.
Heart attack, stroke.
Correct.
Disease.
Yeah. I have an article right here that talks about that early death from traumatic experiences that are not addressed.
Okay, so traumatic experiences that are not addressed and the person hasn't healed from them, that end up manifesting themselves into anger towards others, anger which is self-harm to themselves.
Correct.
And people don't realize is that even when you're anxious, you're dumping a lot of bad chemicals into your body.
Yes.
And even people that are going to be late for something and they don't want to be late, they can really elevate, and they've dumped all these bad chemicals into their body. And so it's a flight response. When you go back into our history, we had to have those types of feelings in order to protect ourselves and chase after food and things like that. But in modern day, we're having these other things that can elevate us.
Yes, correct. And that's why, we need to, the American public or even the Canadian public, it's good. We need to be educated. We need to be open to say, hey, I need something to help me to deal with all these issues. It doesn't have to be necessarily mindfulness meditation. It can be some other things that deals with the emotions, the sensations in the body, so that we can heal, right? So yoga, qigong, tai chi, any sort of movements can help us to be in touch with this body. Also, somatic therapy, right? But most people don't realize that. They don't. I don't know.
Well, they're not.
Yeah.
But they're not also not open to it.
Correct.
I mean, there's people that they believe that what they believe in is what everybody should believe in, and if anybody goes against them, they think they're wrong, and so the last thing they need to do is to meditate. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Correct.
The last thing they would do is meditate.
Well, or that or wait until they get into prisons, right? Which is too late, But and that's the unfortunate thing. And I just before our talk this morning, I did some research on people seeking therapy, and there's only like 21 to 30% of Americans seeking therapy, and that is very, very low. That is very unfortunate.
Yes, it's very unfortunate.
Yeah, and I hope that people, those who wanted to help themselves, can research into the Buddha's teaching and the meditation, just so that they can actually take care of their physical and mental health. Because that is really important, Yeah.
And the article that you held up there, is it from people dying of, is it mostly heart attack, or is it disease, or what is causing the early death?
It's a major physical illness. I can send you these articles.
Yes, major physical illness.
Yeah, and it could also be cancer, right? Because when you have so much toxins in your body, they accumulate, and if you don't eat properly, right, or sleep properly, you're going to give rise. The body is going to give rise to cancer. The cancer cells increase.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
That's what I thought that happened.
Correct. And you see and hear, even major, well-known or famous people, right? A lot of them die in their 30s and 40s, and this is what it is. Or, suicide, right? Because they can't deal with all of this. A lot of suicide. And that is very, very unfortunate. I just hope that, people out there recognize that and get help.
Yeah, it'd be wonderful if people did. See, the thing is that when we take care of ourselves and our mental health and doing what makes us happy, it rubs off on other people, and it helps the people that you come in contact with. And sometimes these types of people who have that aura about them, they become a magnet, and people want to be in their company, and they want to know their secret, and that's the biggest thing. So if individually, if we took care of our own self and our own happiness and our own psyche and our practices, our daily practices, when we become healthy, people want to know what you're doing.
Correct.
Right? Which is a really nice way. Is there anything that you'd like to talk about that we haven't talked about? Because I know that you're a wealth of knowledge about many different subjects, and I'd really like to, I know I've been asking you questions, but is there anything you'd like to talk about?
Well, I think I have said some of that before. Like, let's say for anyone out there, if you feel sad, or if you feel angry, or you feel anxious or lonely, look for don't just go listen to music. Don't reach outside. Look within. Understand why you feel this way, because these feelings come from the mind, and it is because of our past experiences that cause us to feel this way. But if you go shopping, drinking, this and that, all those things can ease your feeling for a few minutes, but then you're going to go back feeling the same way. So look into the root causes of these feelings. And you may be, but it takes practice. You have to do a lot of contemplation and reflection, or even ask your parents around, and then you're able to understand the root causes, and with, let's say, meditate, when you understand that, and with meditation, it can help you to really unload and get rid of most of these feelings. And that's what I have been doing inside the prison. They're able to recognize that. There was a case that I read on the book, The Wise Heart by Jack Cornfield. There was a clinical psychologist. I think it was a he. He wasn't open to God. He went to the Buddhist meditation retreat. I think he was in his 60s, and he struggled, but he recognized that, you know, he survived the war. I'm not sure which war that his family siblings died from, and he survived. He accepted that, but he couldn't accept God. And what happened was, I think it was during World War II or something. There was the Bible, and then there was this image of God. To him, it's like, if there's a God, why did you let all of this happen to me?
People say that, yes.
It took him weeks to be in the meditation to remember, because 3 years old, right? He did not remember. Oh, also his father left him. So all of this he did not remember until he meditated, until he was able to talk about it. And that's what he was able to remember. And then to him, everything in front of him was God, you know. So again, come back to, like, if you stress out this and that easily, look into the causes. You know, don't go shopping, don't go gambling, don't go drink. Yeah, it could help, but it does. You don't address the root causes of your feeling or the issues that happen.
Do you find that people do those things because they're too afraid to look at what it is?
Correct. They either couldn't face it, or they are not aware of it. That is normal. They think they thought that it's normal because, hey, everyone around me felt this way, right?
Right.
Especially since the pandemic, let's say, you know, no, but it's not normal. That's why Dr. Gabor Mate, he published his book, The Myth of Normal. The things that we have done are not normal. But we normalize, just as we normalize violence and trauma inside the prison. But we need to be able to look within and help, just so that we can live happily. And you know, but you just have to be open, have an open mind, and deliberate, you know, with an intention to say, hey, I want to be happy naturally, you know.
And it's a contentment. Like, I'm happy on Christmas morning, and I'm happy when I go on a trip, but the rest of my life I like to live in some type of contentment and usefulness with the work that I do. I have a huge curiosity, and have had a huge curiosity about reincarnation, and we talked about it just briefly, that you said that the Buddha does believe in reincarnation, and a lot of people are interested in that. Are you able to speak about that a little bit more? Like, what if we don't, like, we come here, is it true that we come here with a purpose, and that all of our things are sort of in our way in order to build us to get, please just tell us.
I don't know. Okay. Here's the thing, right? Going back to what I want the audience to know is that also the other thing is find your purpose. When you find your purpose, it will make everything that you do meaningful. If you'll feel content anyway. I just want to throw that out as well. Now, in terms of, I would say, rebirth, because reincarnation means that when I'm born next life, it's going to be the same person, but it does not apply to all of us. The Tibetan tradition, their lineage, they use that, you know, but for most of us, like, the term rebirth, meaning that when at the end of our life, you know, the next life, that whatever form that we take, that's what we call rebirth.
Rebirth, okay.
Rebirth, yeah. And but it depends on what we do in this lifetime. The good deeds and the bad all together will take our consciousness to the next rebirth. So we could be born in heaven. We could be born as human. We could be born as pets or animals. Or we could go to the heavenly realm. The ghost or the hungry ghost realm, or in hell. So it depends on what we do this lifetime. And there have been a lot of reading that I have found, even in modern societies, that think of that we are here to learn something spiritually, because this is one stop. This life is one stop.
This is just one stop.
Yeah. And then, you know, we'll go to the next stop. So, like, you know, the thing.
That's exciting.
Oh yeah, the thing people need to realize, especially the billionaire, is that you cannot take a penny with you. Okay, so stop hoarding,
Hoarding.
right?
Hoarding.
Yeah, and so let that go. But like, what good do you do? What kind of good can you do for yourself and society, just so that you can be in heaven next life? Because nobody knows, right? Nobody. I don't know of anyone who passed away and came back to tell me, okay, this is we don't know. But according to the Buddha, the good that we do this lifetime will take us to the next step, to the next station.
So then, is it true if you live your life where you are careful and you have a spiritual practice, would that next stop be the next level of those practices?
Yes, to carry you to the next life.
Okay, to carry to the next life.
Yeah, whatever we do this lifetime will take us to the next life. So that's why, again, I talk to people here now and inside the prison. Whatever issues that you have, anger, this and that, let it go. Walk on it, let it go. Because let's say, even if you believe that you go to heaven, but if you go to heaven with all this hate or anger, the divine or God up there, I don't think they would he or she would tolerate that, right? Or the beings, there are probably billions of beings up there. Like, why would anyone want to be with you when you carry all this anger or hatred? That's like, I keep reminding people, let it go. Let it go. Even if you're right, even if it is injustice for you to suffer, accept it. Walk on it, let it go.
Yeah, that's a tough thing to do, is accept that this is the way it is. And so they really need a goal of where they're going to next, really, right?
Correct. Yeah. And when they recognize that, it's good to reach out to talk about it. To talk about the issue. It may take months, but once you talk about it, once you acknowledge it, it'll be easier.
It takes the energy out of it, right?
Yeah.
Once it's out in the open. Yeah.
Right, because otherwise your mind gets stuck in it. You can't get out of it. Yeah. Just so your audience know, I was physically and verbally abused by my dad. I was also molested. I was drowned when I was 7 years old in South China Sea. I survived 7 days and 6 nights on a boat from Vietnam to Malaysia. I survived. I lived in the U.S. for 42 years. I came to the U.S. with $10. I made it to where I am. And 3 years ago, my SUV was total on the highway. I survived. I'm not on any medication. Almost 2 years ago, my next door neighbor who had psychosis, he brandished an AR-15 in front of my house at 2 a.m. in the morning. I'm not even mad at him. He's in jail right now waiting for the court case. But my point is that I suffer all of that, but I'm get to the point where I can manage everything, that I'm able to do what I do, which is basically volunteering in the state prisons.
Well, that is a huge testament that you have went through. And I mean, you just summed all that up in a minute, which was a whole lifetime of what you went through. And look how you serve, and look at the love that you've brought to the people, to heal people, because that could have went really quickly a different way. Isn't that true? That's why we have prisons, right?
Yeah, I could have died. I could have been in prison. And just so also, I have a bachelor in electrical engineer. I have a master in electrical engineer. I have an MBA and then an MA and PhD in Chinese Buddhism.
They should do a documentary on you.
I had
because
Go ahead.
Really, because see, this is inspiring. I mean, you have taught the listeners so much. You've taught me so much. And it's inspiring to know that regardless of your background, that you can still rise above everything and contribute to the world at such a high level, contribute to the human race at such a high level, that it's so inspiring.
Yeah, I feel that that I'm very lucky. Even a typical American wouldn't have that much.
Is it grace or is it luck? Have you been graced? Have you been graced because of everything that you've went through and how you've turned that that truck around, that train around, and been such a benefit to the human race. Were you sort of graced over all of that time that just led you to where you are? Did you recognize the grace? Did you recognize, were there any signs that you were made for something more than how you were treated?
I didn't know, to be honest. I didn't know when I was going through that. I cry a lot. Most of my life for the first 40 years. I'm now 60. I'll be 62 next month. But I think I have that what you call resilience and grit, Grit, that helped me to get through, to push through everything. That's why I keep telling people, I cannot take another car crash. Please, don't hit me. Yeah.
Oh, it's definitely grit. Yes.
Yeah. So I think I had, but those, I didn't realize those until for the past few years, ever since I volunteer in the prison. And I think it's the volunteering in the prison that actually helped me to process and heal my trauma. Yeah.
Well, and then as you heal your trauma, then you're able to affect others because you know the depth of their pain.
Correct.
Right? Because you could have went either way. And I think that, it's just my perspective, is that your soul and you made an agreement before you came here. And I think sometimes this is what it is, and that you lived it out. And you were always on the path to greatness.
Yeah. I think there's someone over me, watching over me.
Watching, definitely. Definitely.
I believe in that.
Beautiful. It's been such a pleasure to be in your company, to sit in your presence, and to hear stories. And the teachings are profound. They really are. And sometimes it's the simplicity of the teaching that people get it. And so that's what makes it profound, because then they can change, or they can say, oh, I didn't know that, right? Correct. I didn't know this about myself. I didn't know that was available to me. Right?
I'm glad to be able to talk to you. Thank you.
Oh, I'm really happy to be in your company. Is there anything you'd like to let the audience know before we wrap up the show?
No, other than that, the thing is, find your purpose and look into, if you're not happy with your life, or something, whatever, dig deeper, look within. And do what you can to be happy, because life is too short. It could be taken away anytime. So be happy and spend time with your family or the people that you care, because once they're gone, that's it. They're too late to regret or remorse. So that's what I like to say.
That's a wonderful ending. So thanks so much for being on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening and being part of the journey with Nature of Consciousness, your host, Rhonda Grant. Theme song is composed and performed by John Park Wheeler.